Hey, welcome back. This is Marriage Builder Sunday, and if you caught Wednesday's episode, you already know where we're headed. Because today we take that same idea and bring it into the room with both of you in it. If you didn't catch Wednesday, don't worry. This one stands on its own. Get comfortable. This is worth sitting with. Let's start here. Every couple has a version of the same fight. The subject changes. Dishes, money, in-laws, who said what to whom, but the shape of it stays the same. And here's what almost nobody notices in the middle of it. The fight isn't actually about the subject. It's about the tone the subject got delivered in. Two people can say the exact same sentence to each other and get two completely different reactions, depending on nothing but how it was said. That's not a coincidence. That's because your partner isn't only hearing your words, they're hearing your history, writing underneath the words, whether you meant to bring it into the room or not. I want you to think about this together, wherever you're listening. Maybe you're in the car with each other right now. Maybe you're each listening separately, and you'll talk about it later. Either way works. Think about the last real disagreement you had, not the content of it, the tone of it. What did your voice sound like? What did theirs sound like? And here's the harder question. Do you actually know where that tone came from? Here's the truth I want to build on today. Tone doesn't start fights. History does. And in a relationship, both people are bringing history into every single conversation, whether they realize it or not. Let's slow down and talk about what that actually looks like in practice, because this is where couples get stuck. When your partner's tone comes out sharp, the instinct is to respond to the sharpness. You match it, or you shut down, or you get defensive. That's a completely natural reaction. But it keeps both people trapped in the surface of the conflict instead of ever reaching what's actually happening underneath. The sharp tone isn't the real conversation. It's a signal that something old just got triggered. And the real conversation only starts once somebody's willing to look past the signal instead of just reacting to it. This is where I want to introduce something I call the second question. Most couples in the middle of conflict only ever ask the first question. What did you mean by that? That question keeps you circling the surface. The second question is the one that actually moves things forward. What did that tone remind you of? Not what did I do wrong? What did my delivery remind you of from somewhere else, from some other time this got learned? That question changes everything because it takes the conversation out of blame and puts it into understanding. And understanding is the only thing that actually de-escalates a moment like that. Blame just adds fuel. Now, I know what some of you are thinking because I hear this from couples constantly. If I stop and ask about their history in the middle of an argument, doesn't that let them off the hook for how they're treating me right now? That is a fair question, and I want to answer it directly. No. Understanding where a tone came from does not erase the impact it's having on you in this moment. Both things are true at the same time. Your partner's sharp tone can be rooted in something old and painful, and it can still be something that hurt you just now. Compassion for the source doesn't cancel accountability for the impact. You get to hold both. So here's how this actually works practically. As two people, when you notice a conversation has gone sideways, the tone is taken over. The actual subject has disappeared. One of you has to be willing to name it out loud. Something as simple as, I don't think we're talking about the dishes anymore. That single sentence, said without contempt, without an eye roll behind it, can pull a conversation back from the edge almost every time. It's not a magic trick. It's just naming reality instead of pretending you're still discussing the thing you started discussing 10 minutes ago. Then, and this is the part couples skip because it feels vulnerable, one of you goes first with the honest version, not the polished version, the honest one. I think I got defensive because that tone reminded me of something. You don't have to have the whole answer in the moment. You just have to be willing to open the door instead of keeping it locked out of pride. I also want to talk about repair, because that's where this teaching actually earns its keep. Every couple is going to have moments where the tone runs the show before either person catches it. That is not a sign of failure. That is what being human in a long-term relationship actually looks like. What separates couples who grow closer over time from couples who slowly drift apart isn't the absence of these moments. It's what happens after. Going back even hours later and saying, the way I said that earlier wasn't fair to you, and I want to tell you where it actually came from. That single act of repair does more for a marriage than 100 arguments won on the facts. I want to say something directly to both of you listening right now, together or separately. You are not adversaries in this. You are two people, each carrying a different inherited story, standing in the same room, trying to build something neither of your histories fully prepared you for. That's not a flaw in your relationship. That's the actual work of it. Let's talk for a minute about what gets in the way of this, because I hear the same obstacle from almost every couple I talk with. One partner is ready to do this kind of reflection, and the other isn't there yet. Maybe they're not ready to look at where their tone comes from. Maybe they get defensive the second the subject comes up. If that's where you are right now, I want you to hear this clearly. You cannot force your partner's readiness. What you can do is model it. You can be the one who goes first, who says the honest sentence, who names the pattern without contempt. That doesn't guarantee your partner follows immediately, but it changes the emotional climate of the relationship. And over time, safety is contagious. People soften when they're met with curiosity instead of accusation, even if it takes longer than you'd like. I also want to address something practical, because teaching this in theory is different from living it on a Tuesday night after a long day. There will be moments when you know exactly what I'm describing right now, and you still get sharp anyway. You'll recognize the tone as it's leaving your mouth and be powerless to stop it in that instant. That is not failure. That is what it looks like to unlearn something that took years to build. The measure of progress isn't whether it happens anymore. It's how quickly you catch it and how willing you are to come back and repair it once you do. Let's talk about what repair actually sounds like. Because I'm sorry, on its own often isn't enough to land the way you want it to. A real repair names three things: what happened, what it likely felt like on the other end, and what you understand about where it came from in you. Something like, earlier my tone was sharp when you asked about the budget. I imagine that landed like I was dismissing you. I think I got defensive because money conversations remind me of feeling judged growing up. That's not a script to memorize word for word. It's a shape, acknowledgement, empathy, and honesty about the source. And once you both start using that shape, repair stops feeling like defeat and starts feeling like the thing that actually rebuilds trust after a hard moment. One more thing worth saying before we close. This kind of repair works both directions. It's not just the job of whoever raised their voice. The partner on the receiving end also has a role, and that role is staying curious for just a few seconds longer than feels natural, instead of immediately matching the tone that just came at you. That doesn't mean tolerating disrespect. It means recognizing that the first 10 seconds of a sharp moment are rarely the whole truth of what's happening, and giving it just enough space to reveal what's actually underneath. If this week's teaching had been landing for you both, the Conversation Reset Toolkit was built exactly for this. Real language, real practices for catching the tone before it runs the room, and for having the repair conversation afterward, instead of letting it go unspoken. It's linked right below this episode, and it's $27, and it was built for exactly the two of you. As we close out today, I want to leave you with this. The goal was never to trigger each other again. That's not what a real relationship is. The goal is to get faster and faster at catching it, naming it, and coming back to each other until the coming back becomes the thing you trust most about being together. Thank you both for spending this time with me. Whatever brought you here today, I hope you leave this conversation a little closer than you started it. And most important, remember, you are extraordinary.